Sarah Williams was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix. She was tired in her heart. For 5 years, she had taken her son Oliver to every doctor and special teacher she could find. She had spent thousands of dollars trying to help him. Oliver was 7 years old and had autism. He almost never spoke. Sarah was very rich. She owned many big buildings in the city and lived in a beautiful house with Oliver. She had everything money could buy, but the one thing she wanted most was to hear her son speak more than a few words. Today had been another hard day. Oliver's new teacher had told Sarah that maybe she should not expect too much. Some children with autism never learn to speak well, the teacher had said. Sarah had smiled and nodded, but inside she felt like crying. After the meeting, Sarah didn't want to go home right away. She saw a small restaurant called Blue River Cafe and decided to stop for lunch. Maybe some food would make them both feel better. The restaurant wasn't fancy, but it was clean and had big windows that looked out at a small river. Sarah led Oliver to a corner table away from other people. She knew how Oliver could get upset with too much noise. "What would you like to eat, sweetie?" Sarah asked, even though she knew Oliver probably wouldn't answer. He was busy lining up the salt and pepper shakers with the sugar packets, making sure they were perfectly straight. He hummed softly to himself, lost in his own world. Sarah sighed and looked at the menu. She would order his favorite chicken fingers and apple juice like always. "Hello there. Welcome to Blue River Cafe. My name is Marcus, and I'll be taking care of you today." Sarah looked up to see a young black man, maybe 25, with a kind smile. He wore the restaurant's blue shirt and black pants uniform. His name tag was pinned perfectly straight on his shirt. "Just water for me, please," Sarah said with a small smile. "And apple juice for my son. We'll have the chicken fingers basket and a small salad." Marcus nodded, but instead of writing down the order right away, he looked at Oliver with real interest. Not the uncomfortable stare that strangers often gave, but with genuine curiosity. "And what's your name, buddy?" Marcus asked, bending down, a little to be closer to Oliver's level. Sarah answered quickly, used to speaking for her son. "This is Oliver. He doesn't really talk much. He has autism." She expected Marcus to just nod and walk away. That's what most people did when they heard the word autism. But Marcus didn't leave. "I see you like things to be in the right order," Marcus said to Oliver, pointing to the perfectly lined up items on the table. "That's pretty cool. I like when things are in the right place too." Oliver didn't look up, but his hands paused for a second. Then Marcus did something that surprised Sarah. He reached over and carefully added a spoon to Oliver's line, placing it with the same care that Oliver had shown. "Is that okay?" Marcus asked softly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you have 5 things in your line." Sarah expected Oliver to get upset. He didn't like when people touched his things or changed his patterns. But instead, Oliver looked at the spoon, then at Marcus, and said quietly, 5. Sarah's mouth fell open. Oliver had spoken to a stranger. This almost never happened. Marcus smiled big. "That's right. High 5 for saying 5? He held up his hand, not pushing but just offering. After a moment, Oliver lightly touched Marcus's hand. Sarah felt tears coming to her eyes. Such a small thing for most people, but for her and Oliver it was huge. "I'll get your drinks right away," Marcus said, standing up. He gave Sarah a kind smile before walking away. When Marcus came back with their drinks, he placed Oliver's juice cup slightly off from the perfect line that Oliver had made. Oliver frowned and quickly moved the cup to line up with the other items. "You're right," Marcus said, nodding seriously. "Everything needs to be in its perfect spot. That's much better." Oliver looked up at Marcus for a second and gave a small nod. During their meal, Sarah watched in amazement as Marcus stopped by their table whenever he wasn't busy with other customers. He didn't try to make Oliver talk. Instead, he would add to Oliver's patterns or just watch and make simple comments about what Oliver was doing. By the end of lunch, Oliver had said 4 words to Marcus, more than he usually said to anyone, except Sarah in a whole day. When it was time to pay the bill, Sarah took out her credit card, It was the special black card that showed she was very rich. She saw Marcus notice it, but he didn't act differently like some people did when they realized she had money. "Thank you for being so kind to my son," Sarah said as she handed him the card. "You have a special way with him." Marcus smiled. "My little brother has autism. He's 16 now, but I remember what it was like when we were kids. Sometimes we need to enter their world instead of always trying to pull them into ours." Sarah felt a strange mix of feelings, hope, wonder, and a little bit of shame that this young waiter seemed to understand her son better than she did sometimes. "How? Did you know what to do with him?" she asked. "I'm actually studying to be a special teacher for kids with autism," Marcus explained. "I'm in my last year of college. I work here to pay for school." "You're very good at it," Sarah said. "Better than many of the expensive teachers we've seen." Marcus handed back her credit card with the receipt. Sarah left a tip that was twice the cost of their meal. She wrote her phone number at the bottom of the receipt. "I'd like to talk to you more about your studies and maybe you could meet with Oliver again sometime. I would pay you, of course." Marcus looked surprised. "I'm not a real teacher yet, ma'am. I'm still learning." "You connected with my son in 1 hour more than some teachers have in months," Sarah said. "Please just think about it. Call me if you're interested." As Sarah helped Oliver put on his coat, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Oliver looked back at Marcus as they left and raised his hand in a small wave. "Bye," Oliver said quietly. It was just one word, but to Sarah, it meant everything. As they walked to their car, Sarah thought about the young man who had somehow found a way into her son's world. She had a feeling this wouldn't be the last time they saw Marcus. What Sarah didn't know then was that this chance meeting at a small cafe would change all their lives forever. 3 days passed and Sarah checked her phone many times. She was starting to think Marcus would not call. Maybe he had just been nice because it was his job. Maybe he didn't want to work with Oliver after all. Sarah sat in her big office on the top floor of her tallest building. From her window, she could see the whole city. She had built her company from nothing after her husband died when Oliver was just a baby. Now she was one of the richest women in the city. But all her money couldn't help her son speak. Her phone rang and she answered quickly without checking who it was. "Hello, this is Sarah Williams." "Hi, Mrs. Williams. This is Marcus from Blue River Cafe." His voice sounded nervous. "I'm calling about your offer to work with Oliver." Sarah's heart beat faster. "Yes. Have you thought about it?" "I have," Marcus said. "I would like to try, but I need to be honest with you. I'm not a real teacher yet. I don't have all the answers." "You connected with my son," Sarah said. "That's all that matters to me right now." They talked for 20 minutes. Marcus explained that he had classes 3 days a week and worked at the restaurant most evenings. He could come to their house on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and Saturday mornings. "How much would you charge per hour?" Sarah asked. There was a pause on the phone. "Well, I get paid $15 an hour at the restaurant, so maybe $20. Sarah almost laughed. The last special teacher she had hired charged $200 per hour and had made almost no progress with Oliver. "Marcus, I will pay you $50 an hour to start. If things go well, we can talk about more." "That's too much," Marcus said, sounding shocked. "No, it's fair," Sarah said firmly. "This is important work. Can you start tomorrow?" The next day, Sarah left work early. She rarely took time off, but she wanted to be home when Marcus arrived. Oliver was playing in the living room, lining up his toy cars by color and size. At exactly 3:30, the doorbell rang. Sarah opened the door to find Marcus standing there. He wore nice pants and a button-up shirt instead of his work uniform. He carried a backpack and looked nervous. "Welcome," Sarah said, stepping back to let him in. "Thank you for coming." Marcus's eyes widened as he looked around the large entrance hall with its marble floor and tall ceiling. Sarah was used to this reaction. Her house was very big and beautiful. "Oliver is in the living room," she said, leading Marcus through the house. When Oliver saw Marcus, something amazing happened. He looked up from his cars and said, "Hi." Sarah couldn't believe it. Oliver remembered Marcus and was greeting him. "Marcus, smiled and sat down on the floor near Oliver, but not too close. "Hi, Oliver. Those are cool cars. Can I see what you're doing with them?" For the next hour, Sarah watched as Marcus slowly joined Oliver's world. He didn't try to make Oliver stop, lining up his cars. Instead, he asked simple questions about the colors and helped Oliver when asked. Sometimes they sat in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. After a while, Marcus took some cards from his backpack. Each card had a picture of a different car on it. "Oliver, I have some car pictures. Would you like to see?" Oliver nodded. Marcus laid out 5 cards in a row. "This blue car needs gas," Marcus said, pointing to one card. "Can you say gas?" Oliver looked at the card. "Gas," he said softly. "Great. Now the car can go vroom." Marcus made a driving motion with his hand. Oliver smiled a little. They went through all the cards. For each one, Marcus had Oliver say a simple word. By the end, Oliver had said 10 different words. Sarah couldn't believe it. When it was time for Marcus to leave, Sarah walked him to the door. "How did you do that?" she asked. "He spoke so much." Marcus smiled. "I'm using his interests. Oliver loves cars and putting things in order, so I'm building on that. Next time I'll bring more picture cards. Eventually we'll work on putting 2 words together." "The other teachers tried to make him stop lining things up," Sarah said. "They said it was a stim that we needed to break." Marcus shook his head. "That's old thinking. These patterns help Oliver feel safe. We can use them to build communication, not break them down." After Marcus left, Oliver seemed calmer than usual. At dinner, he even said, "More juice," when his cup was empty. Sarah almost cried with happiness. Over the next few weeks, Marcus came 3 times a week as planned. Each time he brought new activities that built on Oliver's love of order and patterns. He created games where Oliver had to ask for missing pieces. He made stories about the toy cars that Oliver loved so much. Sarah watched in amazement as her son began to speak more and more. Not just single words, but short phrases like "red car fast" and "want blue one." One Thursday, about a month after they started, Sarah came home early again to watch the session. When she arrived, she heard voices from the living room. She walked quietly to the doorway and stopped, not believing what she saw. Marcus and Oliver sat on the floor with a large paper road map spread out between them. They had little cars placed on different streets. Marcus was holding a police car. "Where should the police car go?" Marcus asked. Oliver pointed to a spot on the map. "Police car goes there. Fix crash." Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. "A complete sentence." Oliver had said a complete sentence. "That's right," Marcus said, smiling big. "The police car helps when there's a crash." "What about the fire truck? Where does it go?" "Fire truck helps fire," Oliver said, putting the red truck near a building on the map. Sarah watched for 10 more minutes as they played. Oliver spoke at least 20 times, using more words than she had ever heard him use before. When Marcus finally saw her in the doorway, he smiled. "Oliver is doing amazing today," he said. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears ran down her face. She just nodded. After Oliver went to his room to rest, Sarah and Marcus sat in the kitchen. "I can't believe the progress," Sarah said, wiping her eyes. "In just 1 month, he's speaking more than he has in years of expensive therapy." "He's really smart," Marcus said. "He just needs the right way to connect." Sarah took a deep breath. "Marcus, I want to offer you a full-time job working with Oliver. You can name your price." Marcus looked surprised. "But I'm still in school. I have classes and you can arrange your schedule however you need to finish school," Sarah said. "But please consider it. Whatever you're doing is working." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Can I think about it? This is a big decision." "Of course," Sarah said. "Take all the time you need." What Sarah didn't say was that she had already decided to change both their lives forever, whether Marcus took the job or not. She had a much bigger plan forming in her mind. A week after Sarah offered Marcus the full-time job, he was still thinking about it. He wanted to help Oliver, but he also needed to finish his college degree. He had worked too hard to give up now, One evening, Marcus was working his shift at the Blue River Cafe. The restaurant was busy, and he moved quickly between tables. Near the end of his shift, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from his college advisor. "Marcus, please come see me tomorrow. There's a problem with your tuition payment." Marcus felt a heavy feeling in his stomach. He knew what this meant. He didn't have enough money for this semester's classes. He had been working extra shifts and using every dollar he could save, but it wasn't enough. College was getting more expensive every year. The next day, Marcus went to see his advisor, Mrs. Chen. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she said, "but you still owe $200 for this semester. If you don't pay by Friday, you'll have to drop your classes." "Can I get more time?" Marcus asked. "I'm working as much as I can." Mrs. Chen shook her head sadly. "I wish I could help. You're one of our best students, but the rules come from the top." Marcus left the office feeling lost. He had been so close to finishing his degree. Just one more semester after this one. Now it might all be for nothing. As he walked to his small apartment, he thought about Sarah's offer. If he took the full-time job with Oliver, he would make enough money to pay for school. But when would he have time for classes? Marcus didn't know what to do. He sat down at his small desk and looked at his textbooks. He had a paper due tomorrow that he hadn't started yet because he was working so many hours at the restaurant. His phone rang. It was Sarah. "Hello, Mrs. Williams," he answered. "Marcus, please call me Sarah," she said. "I'm calling to see if you've thought more about my offer." "I have," Marcus said slowly, "and I want to help Oliver, but I need to finish my degree. It's important to me." There was a pause on the phone, then Sarah said, "What if I told you there's a way you can do both?" "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "I'd like you to come to my office tomorrow. I have something to show you." The next day, Marcus went to the tall building in the center of the city where Sarah worked. Her company, Williams Real Estate, owned many buildings and made millions of dollars every year. The front desk person sent Marcus straight to the top floor. Sarah's office was huge, with windows all around showing views of the whole city. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said, standing up from her desk. "Please sit down." Marcus sat in a comfortable chair across from her. On her desk was a folder with his name on it. "Marcus, I did some research on you," Sarah said. "Hope you don't mind. I found out you have a 3.9 GPA. Your professors say you're one of the best students they've ever had, and you've done all this while working full-time to pay your own way." Marcus didn't know what to say. He just nodded. "I also found out you're having trouble paying for this semester," Sarah continued. Marcus felt his face get hot with embarrassment. "How did you know that?" "I made a donation to your school last year," Sarah explained. "The dean and I are friends. I asked about you." She opened the folder and took out some papers. "I have a proposal for you. It's all written here, but I'll explain it simply. I want to create a scholarship for students studying special education, with focus on autism. You would be the first person to get this scholarship." Marcus stared at her. "A scholarship?" "Yes. It would pay for all your remaining school costs, tuition, books, everything. You wouldn't have to work at the restaurant anymore. You could focus on school and on working with Oliver." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Why would you do this for me?" Sarah smiled. "It's not just for you, it's for Oliver and for all the other children who need help like yours. What you're doing is special, Marcus. You have a gift that should be developed, not held back by money, problems." She pushed the papers toward him. "The scholarship would cover your costs until you finish your degree. In return, I'd like you to work with Oliver for 15 hours a week, on a schedule that works with your classes. After you graduate, I have a bigger plan I'd like to discuss, but that can wait." Marcus picked up the papers with shaking hands. This would solve all his problems. He could finish school, he could help Oliver. He wouldn't have to worry about money every day. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say yes." Sarah said simply, "Let me help you the way you're helping my son." 2 days later, Marcus gave notice at the Blue River Cafe. His manager was sad to see him go, but happy for his opportunity. That same day, he paid his tuition bill in full with the first check from the Williams Scholarship Fund. With more time to focus on Oliver and his studies, Marcus created a special program just for the boy. He made colorful cards, games, and activities that all built on Oliver's love of patterns and order. Each activity was designed to help Oliver learn more words and start putting them together into sentences. Sarah turned the guest house behind, her main house, into a learning space for Oliver and Marcus. She bought special furniture, computers, and learning tools that Marcus suggested. It became Oliver's favorite place to be. By the end of the first month of working together more hours, Oliver was speaking in short but complete sentences almost every day. He started to look people in the eye more often. He even began to show interest in other children when they went to the park. One day, Sarah came home from work to find Marcus and Oliver sitting at the kitchen table. They had papers and crayons spread out in front of them. "Hi, Mom," Oliver said clearly. "We make pictures." Sarah froze in place. Oliver had never called her mom before. He had always just pointed or made sounds when he needed her. Tears filled her eyes as she walked over to see what they were drawing. Oliver had drawn a simple picture of 3 people standing in front of a house. "This is you," he said, pointing to the tallest figure. "This is me." He pointed to the smallest. "This is Marcus." He pointed to the figure in the middle. "That's beautiful, Oliver," Sarah said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Is that our family?" Oliver nodded. "Our family." Sarah looked at Marcus, who seemed just as surprised as she was. "He's never drawn people before," she whispered. "Only cars and patterns." That night, after Oliver was asleep and Marcus had gone home, Sarah sat in her office looking at Oliver's drawing. The 3 figures were holding hands. She thought about how much had changed in just a few months since that day at the restaurant. She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. "James, it's Sarah Williams. I need you to set up a foundation. I'm going to call it Oliver's Voice. I want all the paperwork ready by next week." "A foundation for what purpose?" her lawyer asked. Sarah looked at the drawing again. "To help children with autism and their families, and to fund research and training for new teaching methods. I'm going to start with $5 million from my personal accounts." As she hung up the phone, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. What had started as a chance meeting with a kind waiter was about to grow into something that would change many lives. And it was all because Marcus had seen, her son, really seen him, when others had only seen his autism. 6 months passed quickly. Oliver was now 8 years old and making progress that amazed everyone. He spoke in full sentences most of the time, though he still had days when he was quieter. He could tell Sarah what he wanted, how he felt, and even what he had learned each day. Marcus was in his final semester of college. Thanks to Sarah's scholarship, he could focus on his classes and on working with Oliver. His professors were impressed with his research on new ways to teach children with autism. They asked him to present his work at a special education conference. One evening, after a good session with Oliver, Marcus and Sarah sat in the kitchen drinking tea. "The conference is next month," Marcus said. "I'm nervous about speaking in front of so many teachers and doctors." "You'll do great," Sarah said. "Your ideas are helping Oliver. They can help other children too." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what I hope. But I'm just one person with some ideas. How many families can I really help?" Sarah smiled. "I've been wanting to talk to you about that. Do you remember I told you I had a bigger plan?" "Yes," Marcus said. "After I graduate." "Well, you're graduating in 3 weeks," Sarah said. "So it's time to share my plan." She opened her laptop and showed Marcus pictures of a building. It was a nice 1-story building with big windows and a playground. "I bought this last month," Sarah explained. "It used to be a daycare center, but it closed down. I'm turning it into the first Oliver's Voice Center." Marcus looked at the pictures with wide eyes. "The foundation you started?" "Yes," Sarah said. "Oliver's Voice is now officially a non-profit organization. This center will be a place where children with autism can get help using your teaching methods. We'll have 5 teaching rooms, a sensory room, a play area, and offices." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. "My teaching methods?" "Yes," Sarah said. "What you've done with Oliver is amazing. I want other children to have the same chance, and I want you to be the director of the center. Marcus put down his teacup. Me? But I'm just graduating. I don't have experience running anything. You have something more important, Sarah said. You have a gift for connecting with these children. You understand them. And you've created a teaching method that works. I can hire people with business experience to help with the running of the center. I need you to be the heart of it. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "What exactly would I do?" "You would develop the teaching program," Sarah explained. "Train the other teachers, work with some of the children yourself, and continue to improve your methods through research." "And the pay?" Marcus asked. He was still a practical person who had grown up with very little money. Sarah named a salary that was 3 times what a beginning teacher would make. Marcus almost fell out of his chair. "That's too much," he said. "No, it's fair," Sarah said firmly. "This is important work, and it's just the beginning." Over the next few weeks, Marcus visited the building many times. He helped design the teaching rooms. He picked out furniture and materials. He even helped paint the walls bright, happy colors. On the day of his college graduation, Sarah and Oliver sat in the audience and cheered loudly when Marcus walked across the stage to get his diploma. He was graduating with highest honors. His family was there too. His mother, father, and his younger brother with autism who had inspired Marcus to become a teacher. After the ceremony, Sarah invited everyone to her house for a celebration. There, she surprised Marcus with a gift. "The keys to a new car. You can't keep taking the bus to the center," she said. "It's too far." Marcus tried to refuse, but Sarah insisted. "It's a company car," she said, "for the director of Oliver's Voice." 2 weeks later, the Oliver's Voice Center was ready to open. Sarah had hired 3 other teachers who were excited to learn Marcus's methods. She had also found 10 children with autism whose families could not afford expensive therapy. These would be their first students. The day before the official opening, Sarah, Marcus, and Oliver stood in front of the building. A worker was putting up the sign, a blue and silver sign that said Oliver's Voice, helping children find their words. "What do you think, Oliver?" Sarah asked. "This is your special place. It has your name." Oliver looked at the building and the sign. "I like it," he said clearly. "It will help kids like me." The next day was the grand opening. Sarah had invited the families of the first 10 students, some community leaders, and a few newspaper reporters. She wanted people to know about the center so more families could get help. Marcus was nervous about speaking to the crowd, but when he saw the children and their hopeful parents, he felt stronger. He explained his teaching method in simple terms that everyone could understand. He talked about respecting each child's way of seeing the world. He showed some of the special materials he had created. One mother raised her hand. "My son hasn't spoken a word in 3 years," she said, her voice shaking. "Can you really help him?" Before Marcus could answer, Oliver stepped forward. This surprised everyone because Oliver usually stayed close to Sarah in crowds. "I didn't talk much before," Oliver said in a clear voice. "Marcus helped me. He can help your son too." The room was completely quiet. Then the mother began to cry. Other parents had tears in their eyes too. This boy, who had once been silent, was now speaking to a room full of strangers, giving them hope. After the opening, the center began its work. Each day, children came for 2-hour sessions. Marcus and the other teachers used games, pictures, music, and patterns to help each child find their own way to communicate. Some children made progress quickly, others moved more slowly. But every child showed some improvement, and their parents were grateful. One evening, about a month after the center opened, Sarah was working late in her office when her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Sarah, something amazing happened today," he said, his voice excited. "Remember the boy whose mother asked if we could help him? The one who hadn't spoken in 3 years?" "Yes," Sarah said. "What happened?" "He said his first word. Today," Marcus said. "Just one word. Ball." But his mother broke down crying. She said it's the first time she's heard his voice since he was 2 years old. Sarah felt tears come to her eyes. She thought about how she had felt the first time Oliver had spoken to Marcus in the restaurant. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "Think of all the children we can help." "There's something else," Marcus said. "I've been getting calls from other cities. Parents who've heard about the center want to know if we can open in their areas too." Sarah smiled to herself. This was exactly what she had hoped for. "Tell them we're working on it," she said. "Because we are." After they hung up, Sarah opened her computer and looked at her financial records. She had made hundreds of millions from her real estate business. Now she knew exactly what she wanted to do with that money. She began to make a list of cities where they could open the next Oliver's Voice Centers. By the time she finished, the list had 20 cities on it. This was just the beginning of something that would grow far beyond what even Sarah had imagined. 5 years passed. What began as a chance meeting in a small restaurant had grown into something amazing. Oliver's Voice now had centers in 25 cities across the country. Thousands of children with autism had found help through Marcus's teaching methods. Oliver was now 13 years old. He still loved patterns and sometimes needed quiet time alone, but he was a different boy from the silent child he had been. He went to a regular school with some special help. He had 2 good friends who accepted him just as he was, and he could talk about his feelings, his dreams, and his ideas. Marcus had become famous in the world of special education. He had written a book about his teaching method called Finding Their Voice. The book was used in many colleges to train new teachers. He had been on TV shows talking about autism and how to help children communicate. He was no longer just a waiter trying to pay for college. He was Dr. Marcus Johnson, with a PhD in special education. Sarah had changed too. She still ran her real estate company, but now she spent most of her time on Oliver's Voice Foundation. She had put $50 million of her own money into building centers, training teachers, and helping families who couldn't afford therapy. She had become a powerful voice for autism, awareness, and education. On the 5th anniversary of the first center opening, Sarah organized a big celebration. All 25 centers across the country joined by video. Hundreds of families came to share their stories. There was a huge cake, music, games, and lots of happy noise, though there were also quiet rooms for children who needed breaks from all the excitement. During the celebration, Sarah stood on a small stage to make a speech. Marcus and Oliver stood beside her. 5 years ago, Sarah began, I was a mother who couldn't talk to her son. Oliver was locked in his own world, and I didn't know how to reach him. She looked at Marcus with a warm smile. Then we met a young man who showed us a new way. He didn't try to change Oliver. Instead, he found a way to connect with him, to enter his world. The room was quiet as everyone listened. Today, Oliver's Voice has helped more than 3,000 children find their words. Sarah continued. We have trained over 500 teachers in the Marcus method, and we're just getting started. The crowd cheered and clapped. Marcus looked embarrassed but happy. Now, Sarah said, I want to introduce someone special. My son Oliver would like to say a few words. This surprised everyone, including Marcus. Oliver had never spoken to such a large group before. He stepped forward nervously. His hands were shaking a little, but his voice was clear and strong. Hello, he said. My name is Oliver Williams. When I was little, I couldn't talk much. The world was too loud and confusing. I liked to put things in order because that was the only thing that made sense. He paused and took a deep breath. Then Marcus came. He didn't try to make me stop doing the things that helped me feel safe. He joined me in my world first. Then, slowly, he helped me join the bigger world. Oliver looked at the crowd. There were many children like him sitting with their families. If you can't talk much yet, that's okay, he said to them. Your words are in there. Sometimes they just need help to come out. And if you like to line things up or need quiet time, that's okay too. You're not broken. You just see the world differently, and that can be a good thing. Many people in the audience were crying now. Parents held their children close. Oliver's words touched something deep in all of them. Thank you, Marcus. Oliver said, turning to his teacher and friend. You helped me find my voice. Now I can help others find theirs too. The crowd stood and clapped for a long time. Oliver smiled shyly and went back to stand by his mother. Sarah hugged him tight, tears streaming down her face. After the celebration, Sarah, Marcus, and Oliver sat in Sarah's office. They were tired but happy after the big day. I have news, Sarah said. I've been talking with people in other countries. They want to bring Oliver's voice to help children there too. Marcus looked surprised. Other countries? Where? We have requests from Canada, England, Australia, and Japan to start, Sarah said. I think it's time to take this worldwide. Marcus shook his head in wonder. When I think about that first day in the restaurant, I never imagined this. Neither did I, Sarah said. I was just a worried mom hoping for a miracle. And I was just a waiter trying to pay for college, Marcus added. Oliver, who had been quietly drawing at a small desk, looked up. But you both did something important, he said. Mom, you didn't give up on me. And Marcus, you saw me when other people didn't. Sarah felt her heart swell with love and pride. Her son, who once could barely speak, was now teaching them about what mattered most. The next day, a major news channel came to interview the three of them for a special report on the success of Oliver's voice. The reporter asked Marcus about his journey from waiter to world-famous educator. It wasn't planned, Marcus said simply. I just wanted to help one child. Then one became many. And Mrs. Williams, the reporter said, you've put millions of your own money into this foundation. Why? Sarah looked at Oliver, who was showing a young boy with autism how to use one of the teaching tools Marcus had created. Some things are worth more than money, she said. Hearing your child speak, seeing them connect with others, that's priceless. The reporter turned to Oliver last. And what do you want to do when you grow up, Oliver? Oliver thought for a moment. I want to be a teacher like Marcus, he said. I understand kids like me. I can help them. After the interview, Marcus received calls from 3 universities offering him positions to teach and continue his research. Sarah was invited to speak at a world conference on autism, and Oliver was asked to join a special youth advisory board for a national autism organization. That evening, the 3 of them went back to the Blue River Cafe, the restaurant where it all began. The restaurant hadn't changed much. They sat at the same corner table where Sarah and Oliver had been sitting 5 years ago when Marcus first served them. It feels like coming full circle, Sarah said, looking around. The current waiter came to take their order. He was a young man, probably working his way through college just as Marcus had done. Excuse me, Oliver said to the waiter, showing more confidence than he ever had with strangers before. 5 years ago, we met someone special here. He changed our lives. The waiter smiled politely, not understanding. What my son means, Sarah explained, is that sometimes the most important meetings happen in the most ordinary places. You never know when one small act of kindness might change everything. As they ate their meal, they talked about the future, more centers to open, more teachers to train, more children to help. What had started with one waiter noticing one silent boy had grown into something that was changing thousands of lives. And it all began because Marcus had seen Oliver, really seen him, when others only saw his autism. Sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world. One person truly seeing another.